At this time, we are so happy that you're here this evening for the LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Uniting to Achieve Equality and Justice program at the Board of Legislators this evening. To lead us in the Pledge of the Flag would be the Honorable David Gelfarb, Legislator Gelfarb.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's please remain standing as we have Rabbi Morris Barzilai from the Sinai Free Synagogue in Mount Vernon come down to lead us in an invocation. Rabbi. Oh, okay. Well then, Almighty God, give us the strength, courage, and wisdom to always act in this chamber to benefit the great people of Westchester County. Let us keep in mind that every decision that we make impacts upon the life, health, and safety of all of our county residents. Amen. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Legislator Harcum.
Here.
Legislator Maisano.
Here.
Ms. Borgia. Here. Mr. Burrows.
Here.
Mr. Gelfarb. Here. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Present.
Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers. Ms. Perez.
here.
Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Ms. Shimsky.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well, good evening. I'm so pleased to welcome our friends from the inside and within the LGBTQ community to celebrate Pride Month here at the County Board of Legislators. The story of our county's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning community is the story of our fathers and sons, our mothers and daughters, our friends and our neighbors who continue to make our country a more perfect union, where equality becomes less of a dream and more of a reality year after year. It is a story about the struggle to realize the great American promise that all people can live with dignity and fairness within the law. Each June, we commemorate the courageous individuals who have fought to achieve this promise for LGBTQ Americans, and we rededicate ourselves to the pursuit of equal rights and equal opportunities for all, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Every generation of American has brought our community closer to fulfilling its promise of equality. This past year, Governor Cuomo and the state legislature was able to achieve marriage equality here in New York, a watershed event indeed. While progress has taken time, the achievements in advancing the rights of LGBTQ Americans reminds us that history, as well as time, is on our side, and that American people will never stop striving towards liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening. At this time, I'd like to have Minority Leader Maisano and Majority Whip Mary Jane Shimsky come down to the podium for the special recognition of Pride Month. Mr. Maisano.
Mr. Chairman, colleagues, honored guests, I want to acknowledge each of you here tonight for celebrating this event with us. We see here tonight a truly American story. It reveals how the movement for fairness and equality, not just for those who are gay, but for all those in our history who have been denied the full rights and responsibilities of citizenship, has succeeded and still continues to change our world. It is a story full of opportunities for friends and neighbors, opportunities that were denied to them for too long. It's the story of progress sought by those who started off with little influence or power, by men and women who brought about change through acts of compassion and courage, and sometimes defiance, wherever and whenever they could. We celebrate the work of all the members of the organizations that comprise the Westchester Pride Coalition. Your leadership within our county has helped move forward the great cause of human rights in our time. Our honorees are but a few of all of the good souls advocating for and supporting the LGBTQ community here in Westchester. All of us, straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and questioning, are made stronger by your work.
Thank you. Westchester County has been at the forefront of many civil rights battles, and one that I've been part of here at the county legislature is our county being a leader on the issue of ensuring equality for gays and lesbians. Nothing is more American than ensuring that all people are judged by the content of their character. And that's something this legislature has taken very serious in my 15 years. And not just our legislature, but our state has made great strides in the last decade or so in ensuring full equality for gays and lesbians. I remind everyone here tonight that, and I've been here a long time, 15 years, so I remember some of the tough issues that affected gays and lesbians right in this chamber. And it was our county legislature that took a lead in ensuring that our human rights law fully protected the rights of gays and lesbians. And it was our county legislature that took the lead on ensuring that Westchester County had a domestic partner registry. These are moments where Westchester was ahead of the curve, our county, and I think we're all very, very proud that this body that you're visiting tonight has been in a leadership role in ensuring that all human beings in this county, regardless of who you are treated with equality and dignity. And I point out that all of these battles that face the gay and lesbian community, when we worked on legislation here at the Westchester County Legislature, the passage of both human rights law with full protection for gays and lesbians and the domestic partner registry were done with bipartisan votes, which I hope means a lot to the people of Westchester. When it came down to voting on important issues of full equality for gays and lesbians, both sides of the aisle stood up for full equality. So I just want to say thank you for being here. This Board of Legislators has taken great pride in opening the door and being a friendship with the gay and lesbian community. So I hope you don't just come tonight, hope you come back again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shukski and Mr. Mazzano. At this point in time, we'd like to have Legislator Alfreda Williams come down to do the presentation of proclamation for Center Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Westchester has long been known for the wonderful cultural diversity of its communities. For the past 12 years, ever since the proclamation signed by former President Clinton, a Westchester resident, I should add, we have long been observing lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning Pride Month. And for good reason. We should not rest until prejudice is eliminated. The LGBTQ rights movement has achieved great progress, but there's more work to be done. That's why we should look to Center Lane as an inspiration and a model for making sure we break down the walls of prejudice. Center Lane, as many of you know, is a safe haven for LGBTQ youth. In fact, it is the only community center in Westchester for our LGBTQ adolescents. The organization was founded by Dr. Amy Cohn in 1996. She realized through her work in the Jewish community that an important segment of the population needed support, and welcoming reassurance that the sociological guilt in Westchester can be an inclusive one. Jill Schreibman was the founding director, and Westchester Jewish Community Services still sponsors Center Lane. With its support groups, workshops, recreational and social events, and wide counseling services, Center Lane truly makes a difference in so many lives. When people and organizations open their hearts to their brothers and sisters, the world can truly be a beautiful place. Tonight, the Westchester County Board of Legislators honors Center Lane, its founders, staff members, and supporters for leading the way toward greater acceptance of LGBTQ youths by their peers and for opening hearts here in Westchester. Center Lane folks, would you come down, please?
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you. Recently, I heard a therapist talk about a client of his who suffered from major depression out in San Francisco. And shortly after a session, this client threw himself off the Golden Gate Bridge. Therapist was notified, and a few days later in this young man's apartment, there was a note. And the young man had written, "If one person smiles at me while I cross the Golden Gate Bridge, I will not jump." I think that's what Central Lane offers to young people. It's a place of being welcomed as you are. Myself and staff can recount countless stories of young people that walk into our portals, into our doors, for the first time. And actually, you can see, it's sort of like the plants that are growing in front of my apartment in Harrison. You can just see the petals open, and you can see life, and you can smell the fragrance. You can see young people begin to see a future for themselves, or begin to be able to focus on academic studies and pursuits, begin to connect with their passion. And in the midst of that, within a community that really cares for them. This past Friday, we celebrated, I believe it was our 18th annual gay prom, with about 200 youth at the Polish Center in Yonkers. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. Straight, gay, didn't matter. It was just young people being in a safe place where they could enjoy a good time, good food, and to know that there was a place that was supportive of them. Also, I'd like to thank the Board of Legislators for your continued support and recognition of our program over these years. It means an awful lot to us. This past year, Senator Lane founded an advisory board to begin to expand program and fundraising services, and Mary Jane is wonderful, wonderful being part of our board as well. We continue to grow. We continue to enter into schools throughout Westchester. It's not about converting people to the cause. It's about offering education. It's about allowing people to hear what our experience is. For too long, the LGBT community, our experience has been negated. It's not important. It's not necessary. It's your thing. Why do you shove it in our faces like that? And as time begins to move on, people are beginning, and our young people are beginning, to feel that their story is their story, and that their story is of value. So having said that, I want to thank you. I also want to thank Westchester Jewish Community Services for having supported Central Lane all of these many years because of their belief in the dignity and the right and the respect of all our young people. Thank you very much.
At this time, we're going to ask the Majority Leader, Peter Harcum, to come down, but at the same time, we are going to ask the Honorable Michael Sabatino, Council Member from the 3rd District in the City of Yonkers, And Robert Voorhees to come down. Yep, we usually don't jump over the ropes like that. That's kind of something we kind of save that for, those other ceremonies, right? However, Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. We're fast approaching the legalization of same-sex marriage in New York State, the first anniversary. And while there is plenty more work to do in terms of labor fairness, insurance fairness, estate planning fairness, we are not there yet. But it's time to pause and proper and celebrate this one victory and the rights and the benefits and the protections that are now in place for many of our friends, my relatives, your relatives, and our neighbors here in Westchester. And as with the entire country, we are leading the fight, as the minority leader said, towards fairness, freedom, and equality. And we need to recognize those who actually organize the marching, who organize the advocacy efforts, who inspire the marchers, and you are the ones who deserve our special recognition. So tonight, the County Board is honoring two individuals, the Honorable Michael Sabatino and Robert Voorhees, for a level and effort of activism on behalf of marriage and equality that anyone in this great state will tell you helped turn the tide toward equality. Through the organization Marriage Equality New York, both Robert and Michael made a personal commitment for the greater good. They were married 9 years ago in Canada, and they dared to lead by example, to be role models, and to be open about their marriage and how it frankly affected their lives. And together with Westchester County, they served as litigants on the issue of recognizing out-of-state same-sex marriages. Here are two individuals united in love and common cause who have served as role models and mentors at Center Lane, making sure that local LGBTQ youth have the level of support they deserve that we just heard so eloquently described. So it is my honor on behalf of the Board of Legislators to thank and honor Michael Sabatino and Robert Voorhees, two remarkable and selfless individuals who I'm proud to call my friends, who are both architects for social change and a better world. Thank you. God bless you. Congratulations. Keep up the work. Thank you.
Well, it's really an honor and a privilege to be receiving this recognition, and it's especially rewarding to me because I'm being recognized by colleagues, which is obviously a new event for me since being newly elected. But I think this award goes to all the advocates out there. This is not a single-handed job. Without all the support of every advocate, we would not be where we are today. And so I want to share this with all of those advocates that work so hard. The other thing is that we still have a long way to go in our fight, in our struggle. As many of you know, we have a big problem with homeless LGBT youth, and that needs to be the focus of our movement. We can't have kids killing themselves anymore. It's just, it's unacceptable. The bullying has to stop. And we also need fairness on the federal level. Fortunately, Robert and I had the privilege of being invited to the White House this past Friday, which was probably one of the biggest thrills of our lives. We got to meet the president, and we traveled with a friend of ours. Her name is Edie Windsor. Edie is an 83-year-old who was married in Canada about, I think in 2007, and her wife died in 2009. They had a fairly sizable estate, and they were, Edie was faced with a $363,000 federal estate tax bill on her own property, as well as a $200,000 New York State tax bill. And she just won her case. And this is what it's about. We don't want anything special. We just want to be treated like everybody else. And we're moving towards that. So the movement now moves on to the national scene, and we look forward for everyone's support. And again, I want to thank the County Board of Legislators.
When I joined the Board of Marriage Equality in New York 14 years ago, I joked with my fellow board members and advocates and laughed that perhaps if we're lucky, we would get married on our 50th anniversary. We actually were able to get married 9 years ago on our 25th anniversary. So, thank you. To me, that was a tremendous victory and tremendous stride, step forward for this country. And we actually had to go to Canada to get married, but we brought it back, and that was why we were part of the court case going up to the High Court to win marriage recognition. I'm looking forward to the day, hopefully in my lifetime, and perhaps on our actual 50th, when we'll have it in all 50 states. That would be a tremendous, tremendous victory, equality for all people. Thank you so much today for this award. I cannot tell you how honored we are to be here today. It's just really, really special. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'd like to recognize some of the outstanding individuals that are here with us this evening that have been supportive of the LGBTQ community. We have Fran Ryan, who is here, and she is the president of the Lambda Peer Support Services Group, LPSS. Fran? Hi. We have Megan Flynn, who's representing WJCS, Westchester Jewish Community Services, who is the Assistant Director and the Director of Children and Youth Services. She is here with us as well. Megan. And I know I saw Linda Barat that's here. She's the co-chair of the Kulanu LGBT community. Linda, where are you? There, Linda, stand up, thank you. At this time, we're going to continue to talk, and we're working on a bill that we have introduced last year regarding cyberbullying and trying to continue to educate people. And I got to say that this was started in last session, and working with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, we did a lot of work to try to make sure that that particular legislation wasn't criminalizing folks. It was more of an education thing, and that's where it is right now. I know that we are working through that in our community, and we were trying to put that in the appropriate committee, the appropriate organization for the county that does that, which is the Human Rights Commission that does that. Certainly there was something that Bernice Breckman and County Executive Astorino did as far as seniors were concerned and talking about bullying overall, and there could be never too many conversations about that as well. All right, so with that said, we're going to continue that fight and working with our friends and members for all our human rights, and that includes obviously our LGBT community in dealing with cyberbullying, which we know that continues to be a scourge, but we're really trying to work hard on the education components of it, because there are laws in place, as we said before, as members said last session, about the assaults and that kind of thing, that there are laws on the books to deal with that specifically. We really have to continue to work on that education, to educate people, to let them know that what things they say and do on the internet can hurt, and they can hurt quickly to millions of people. So we're going to continue to do that. At this time, we have Rabbi Morris Barzilai, who is here from the Sinai Free Synagogue, who is going to give us the benediction and take us home. Rabbi.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here this evening. It was a little over a year ago that my daughter, who was a senior at New Rochelle High School, had a friend who she was concerned about and shared with myself and my wife that she was having certain issues and didn't have anyone to turn to. Not her parents. She didn't feel comfortable turning to anyone in the high school. She was being bullied because she had come out that she was a lesbian. And we were aware, my daughter was aware of Center Lane, the wonderful program that we honor tonight, and their work of being there to be a support and to accept people where they're at and to give them the comfort, because there still is much education to do. It was a Friday night, almost exactly a year ago, June 24th, when I remember coming home from leading Sabbath services, the Shabbat services in my synagogue. And when I arrived home, a little while later, I heard some cheering noise from the bedrooms where my daughter was, and then also where my son was. As news came about, surprising a little bit, we weren't following in the afternoon, that the Marriage Equality Act had passed in New York State. And to see that reaction from my children gave me that sense of hope that this was another profound moment, a first step perhaps, or one of many steps, just like when I was young and the Civil Rights Acts were being led, that this was a moment that hopefully we could build upon, so that the values that all people share, the values that we are created in the divine image, each and every one of us, that there is a sense of belief, whether we are people of faith or not, belief in the equality of all people. And though we might have differences, that tonight we come to celebrate those who ask us to unite for equality and justice. Our traditions teach us that we should be seekers of peace. But our tradition also teaches us there can be no peace if there is no justice. So I ask the community together to rise as I offer this blessing, this benediction. We should call upon God to bless our work. Ribono shel olam, O God, Master of the universe, the force of goodness, the creator of all. As we come this evening to celebrate, to commemorate this month of Pride Month, we come to remember the good steps and the good work done by many in our community. Thank you, O God, for leaders such as Michael Sabatino and Robert Verhees, who have helped lead the March for Equality for the LGBTQ community, and really for all people. And so too, thank you for the leaders of the Westchester Jewish Community Services, and those particularly who work for Center Lane in creating a place where all our young people can find supports and guidance, and help us to appreciate the work of our public servants, the legislators of this county and of this great state of New York, who are willing to stand up that we might unite to achieve equality and justice, leading not only the states but this nation in the battle to erase fear and ignorance and to create a society where justice and peace can prevail. May it be so, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. That concludes this evening's ceremonies regarding LGBTQ. As we recognize Pride Month, we want to say to all of our guests that were here this evening, thank you so much for joining us this evening. But we will also ask you to do us a favor, which is when you go past the conference room with the refreshments in it, make sure you take as much as possible, because we do not want to have legislators having to need the BeFit program. So, again, thank you so much for your attendance, and we are going to continue working with you. Let's give a round of applause for Center Lane, its outstanding Executive Director, James Stewart, and our colleague, Michael Sabatino, down on the Yonkers City Council, as well as his husband, Robert Voorhees, and all of their fine, outstanding work. They've been in this chamber many times on many different issues. Thank you so much for you and for all of the folks that came out this evening, so thank you so much. We'll give you a moment to retire. At this particular point in time, we are going to ask the Honorable Bill Ryan to come down to the podium for purposes of a presentation. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would ask at this point if Hannah Steinberg would join me, please.
And Ms. Steinberg, if you can just come down to the ropes that are to your right. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hannah? Tonight, we pause in our proceedings to honor Hannah Steinberg for her generous contributions of caring, time, and money to benefit the lives of the residents of our Coachman Family Center in White Plains. In preparing for this presentation tonight, I had an opportunity to review two things. One of them I want to read to you. Someone who was perhaps reviewing their edition of the May 2nd, 2012 Wall Street Journal perhaps remembers this lead. Hannah Steinberg is extreme couponing for a cause. In just a year, the 16-year-old Scarsdale, New York resident has provided more than $26,500 in groceries, toys, and personal items to the Coachman Family Center in White Plains, New York. Last fall, Hannah, who was a resident of Scarsdale and a junior at Solomon Schechter High School, saw a need for food and toys and personal care items for the residents of our Coachman Family Center, just a short distance from this building. It's, I think, important for me to say, because not only is there an audience here tonight, but there are people that are viewing the live streaming of this meeting, that the Coachman Family Center is a short-term residence center for homeless families. It's located, once again, right here in White Plains. In one of the things that Hannah considered as she thought about what to put together, she was very concerned for the children, and especially that they receive holiday gifts in December. Now, mind you, once again, this is last fall. Hannah met with the administration of the Coachman to determine what items would be most useful, and then launched her campaign to use couponing to augment the funds donated by friends and family, and even her very own savings. She also enlisted her contacts and local newsstands to save coupons from the newspaper and coupons that you can obtain over the internet. After spending, and I can imagine it was probably more than what I'm going to tell you, hours of her own time. It probably had to be hours and hours and hours, unending almost, of her own time to cut coupons, scour local store sales flyers, and match those store sales with the coupons. Hannah set out to make the thousands of purchases that she would make that resulted in brightening the holidays of the children and adults at the Coachman Family Center with, as I mentioned before, toys for the kids, as well as food for all, and the personal care items that we know that adults and children need. Today, she continues to work to meet the needs of these families with additional supplies. It's safe to say that this snapshot that we've taken to consider tonight has demonstrated to us the great compassion for those that she has for those who are struggling with homelessness, and her determination to take action to improve their daily lives. We've set aside some time tonight for this very important recognition, and I want to thank each and every one of you, my colleagues on the Board of Legislators, for deciding to do that, because it's important that we pay tribute to Hannah Steinberg and that we thank her for her efforts to better the lives of her fellow county residents. The proclamation, as you can well imagine, because we've all put these together, basically tells her story. But for purposes of the audience, let me just note one item down toward the bottom of the document. Resolved that today, June 18th, 2012, be proclaimed Hannah Steinberg Day in Westchester County. You can applaud. So Hannah, I tell you, not only is it a great pleasure to have you with us here tonight, but it's a great honor for us to be able to collectively present you, one, with this proclamation, okay, which seems, giving this to you now, it seems very small by comparison to what we really want to thank you for, and that is for your great service to the residents of Westchester County.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We're going to go right here in front. Dad? Yes. Come on, Dad. Absolutely. I'll have you guess. You get in the position where you can get a really great picture. I can tell you, that's a very proud father.
This time, we'd ask the Honorable Lyndon Williams if he would come down for a moment for purposes of the presentation. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Daniel Matthews and his mom, as well as Brandon Clay and Mr. Paul Court, to join me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the legislature. As a former president for 6 years of the Westchester County Black Bar Association, and a current member of the Board of Directors. I am proud to recognize this evening the winners of the National Bar Association Regional Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice Advocacy Scholarship Competition. Let me tell you that the National Bar Association is the nation's oldest and largest bar association of African American lawyers. The competition, the national competition, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice competition, is a essay and oral competition that is nationally done each year. And the competition is named Drum Major for Justice because with one of the last speeches that were made by Dr. King in a sermon in 1968 at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where he talked about how he wanted to be remembered as a drum major for justice. This year, all three of the winners of this prestigious regional competition are students of Mount Vernon, attending the Thornton High School, and all are enrolled in the Advanced Placement Government classes. That's a... First, I want to recognize the first place winner in this competition. It's Daniel Matthews. The second place winner was Brandon Clay. Brandon. And the third place winner was Yassine El-Yousefi. Yassine is not here tonight, but we have a certificate for him. But let me say this, that this year's participation, the participants were asked to tackle one of the most critical social issues gripping our nation, the Occupy movement. As many of you know, the Occupy movement is an international protest movement primarily directed against social and economic inequality. The challenges that were faced by these students were to discuss how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a principal champion of social change, would address either the tenets of the tense cities or the opponents of the Occupied movement. So they certainly had a challenge. But having impressed the judges of the National Bar Association's legal panel with his presentation, Daniel Matthews was awarded a $1,000 scholarship, as well as an all-expense-paid trip to the National Bar Association conference in Las Vegas, Nevada in July to represent the Northeast region in this national competition. Second place winner Brandon Clay and third place winner Yassine El-Yousefi also offered moving presentations as well, and really demonstrated what it means to really be a team in accomplishing a goal. And for that, our community is extremely proud of them, of all of them. As a county, it is imperative that we always acknowledge our youth for such accomplishments. And these extraordinary young men embark on the next phase of their educational journey. May they always remember what Dr. King said. He said, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." I want to congratulate the students, I want to congratulate their parents, and I want to congratulate a very special person who I know a very long time, and that is Mr. Paul Court, who is a social studies teacher. And I can tell you firsthand that his steadfast commitment, his steadfast dedication to building confidence, character, and academic accomplishments in our students are so important in our city. Thank you, Mr. Court, for all that you do. And let me present the certificates. It reads, "In recognition of your impressive work and esteemed effort, we congratulate you on winning the first place in the National Bar Association 2012 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice Advocacy Scholarship Competition. Daniel Matthews, we salute you." And the second certificate says, "In recognition of your impressive work and esteemed effort, we congratulate you on winning the second place in the National Bar Association's 212 Regional Competition, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice Advocacy Scholarship. Brandon Clay, we salute you." Let me ask, we have a certificate also for Youssef and for Yassine, and I will turn that over to you, Mr. Clay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Clay, Mr. Court, thank you. And would you mind saying a few words? Just a few.
Thank you very much for the invitation. On behalf of the teachers and staff at Thornton High School, the community of Mount Vernon, I would like to thank the legislative body for inviting us here, and Mr. Williams especially. As a teacher, it doesn't get much better than this, to have two of my students recognized in this way. They are juniors, and we have high expectations for them leading the next crop of advanced placement students in next year's schedule of events. We try to bring the students out of the classroom. These two young men were both involved in the city council race in Mount Vernon when an alumni of Mount Vernon High School was successful in his bid to win a seat on the city council, Mr. Richard Thomas. They also have represented Thornton High School and Mount Vernon at the United Nations for the annual celebration and commemoration of the Atlantic slave trade. They're members of the Model United Nations Club, and I couldn't be more proud. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Williams and Mr. Ryan. I know that we have traditionally had these events when we talk about the sports world, and members have asked, and we have decided, and we've made time for this. I know we have one, Ms. Marcotte has poured forward to us about another particular person as well, that we're going to set some time set at the beginning of the meeting to do this, probably right before at 6:45. So members kind of put that in your schedule so we can get that stuff done at 6:45 to continue the business. All right, but these are outstanding individuals, and let's give them all a round of applause before we continue with our order of business. Madam Clerk, regular order of business. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, we would move the consent calendar with the following proposed revisions. On page 5, number 13, please add Committee on Government Operations. On page 6, number 3, please add Committee on Government Operations. On page 7, please add Committee on Environment and Energy and remove Committee on Community Services. And with that, I would move the consent agenda.
Mr. Mazzano. Mr. Williams.
I'm in agreement.
Members, we are on consent. Madam Clerk, let's do the, Ms. Harvin, let's do minutes approval.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, at this time, I would move the 7 p.m. meeting minutes from June 4th.
Without objections, members, so ordered. Madam Clerk, public comment.
Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. The first speaker is Lewis Wilden. As he is making his way down to the aisle to my left behind the black ropes, I'll call the next number of speakers. Richard Sarkisian, Regina Riley, Judith Anderson, Mary Jane Bloomer, and Ed Riley.
And speakers, if you have information to present, Mr. Weldon, come with you. And if you give that to the clerk, they will make sure that the members of the Board of Legislators receive whatever documentation that you have there. Thank you. They just won't do that right now to respect when you're talking.
Okay.
Mr. Weldon.
Hello, my name is Lewis Wilden. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I work with the LaRouche Political Action Committee, and we are leading a drive and a fight right now to reenact Franklin Roosevelt's Glass-Steagall Act, which I think is essential for the survival of our country. What you're going to be receiving is a comprehensive packet on what I could call a Franklin Roosevelt-style recovery of our financial system and of our nation. We got to start building infrastructure, get back to our manufacturing, get back to our industry. The big book that I have here is on a project called NWAPA, it's called North American Water and Power Alliance, a comprehensive, full continent-wide water project that was designed in the 60s that will employ 4.5 to 6 million people in highly skilled, highly productive work. And so what I'm asking of the council is, the legislature here is the following. The other things that I have in here are legislation resolutions that were passed by the Essex County Board of Freeholders in New Jersey and the Middlesex County Board of Freeholders in New Jersey, which call on the enactment of a current bill in Congress, H.R. 1489. It has 67 co-sponsors right now. And it just gained 10. How? Because of the collapse of J.P. Morgan Chase and because of the Spanish debt crisis. This is an absolutely essential policy. It's the Marcy Kaptur's Return to Prudent Banking Act, H.R. 1489, which will reinstate the Glass-Steagall. And so I asked this legislature today to look at these resolutions and consider putting before this body a resolution similar to call on the enactment of Glass-Steagall and the passage of H.R. 1489. And I would also ask you to personally, if you agree with this policy of Glass-Steagall, to call up your Congresswoman, Nita Lowey, and ask her to put her name on it. We need a flood of congressmen to come onto this bill at this point, and we can get this through. I have also a resolution on this NWAPA project. It's a lengthy report. If you got time, study it, and maybe you might want to pass a resolution calling for this. And I think you'll enjoy the report. So that's what I have. If you're interested in doing this, please, I'll be here throughout the meeting. I'd love to speak to a few of you who are interested, and thank you. This copy is for you, for the clerk.
The next speaker is Richard Sarkisian.
Hi, I am Rick Sarkisian. I'm from Bergen County over in New Jersey. The events of the past 3 years prove that the supervision of national banks for the protection of depositors has been ineffective. I propose much more rigid supervision. We have witnessed not only the unrestrained use of bank deposits in speculation to the detriment of local credit, but we are also aware that this speculation was encouraged by the government itself. I propose that such speculation be discouraged and prevented. Investment banking is a legitimate business. Commercial banking is another wholly separate and distinct legitimate business. Their consolidation and mingling is contrary to public policy. I propose their separation. Now, this is not myself speaking. I'm reading from a book that was published originally in 1933 by Franklin Roosevelt called Looking Forward. So if any of what I just read sounds familiar to what's going on today, you should give serious thought to what's going on in the world, including this Glass-Steagall proposal, this 1489 that the previous gentleman spoke to. There's a lady in Texas who's running in District 22. She's a Democratic congressional candidate, and she has an article that I think puts out some of the points, particularly if you've been following anything that's been going on in Europe. The Greek elections having confirmed that the future of global banking is going to be defined by one thing, and she calls it hyperinflationary bailouts of bank gambling debts. And why does she say that? In the news, we have that 5 major banks around the world, the Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, Swiss National Bank, and the Bank of Japan, all being publicly committed to quantitative easing. Now, what does the term quantitative easing mean? It means the unlimited printing of public money for private gamblers or bailouts of speculative activities. In other words, FDR in 1933 pointed out that there was a commingling, there was a mixture between legitimate banking business and monies that were used for speculative purposes. And this has led us, since the Glass-Steagall was repealed, was taken down in 1999, it has led to this complete mess that we're in today. Can I continue?
No, please wrap up.
Okay. So the bottom line here is these banks are going to be printing a lot of money. There's going to be hyperinflation. Go back to history and learn about or remind yourself of what happened in Germany in 1923. It's not a pretty picture. The Deutschmark basically was totally worthless. I'm very concerned that that these quantitative easing policies will lead to the same thing. And you know, it's a funny thing. I've been going around in Bergen County to the town council meetings. At that time, about a year ago, there was only a handful of representatives who supported 1489, and now there's over 60. So something is working, so I continue to plug away at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regina Riley.
Regina Riley, that's my name, from District 9, which is Mrs. Borges' district. There is a freedom rally on this coming Saturday, June 23rd, at the corner of Quaropus and South Lexington Avenue in White Plains, right here, from 12 to 2, in front of the federal courthouse. And it's an important rally, and I'd suggest you all be there. Government on local, state, and federal levels are undercutting the constitutional rights of citizens from the United States of America more and more every day. Government overreach in our own county level included a bill whose purpose was to intimidate one particular group from exercising freedom of speech. On a state level, the Reproductive Health Act would force Christian institutions to underwrite abortions and include it in their employees' plans. The same bill would allow abortions to be performed by non-physicians, including medical social workers, chiropractors, and other healthcare professionals. The bill does not distinguish between surgical and medical abortions. The cocktail of poison pills administered as RU-46 are anything but safe. What can the medical social worker do for a woman who, after ingesting a synthetic male hormone, acquires a massive infection and then takes the methotrexate, and that causes uncontrollable bleeding? The social worker can only do what any of us can do, and that's call 911 and an emergency vehicle. She can't hang IV antibiotics and start an IV. She can't cauterize the womb, which is bleeding profusely, or do an emergency D&C or packing. The chemical abortion is more dangerous to women because you do not see any bleeding in the first hour when the person is being observed. It's only when they go home that all the trouble starts. Surgical superficial conversations give women a false sense of what's going on, and sometimes not the information they really need to know. An infection might not be discovered and be masked by the hormones. On the state level, the mandate of Obamacare forces the Catholic Church to act against their conscience and moral code and Christians' teaching of 2,000 years. We're asking that people look at what's being done to the Catholic Church and other churches, and it's going against our very most important right, the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And there are no underpinnings left. So what do you determine character by, which is what Martin Luther King was talking about. How do you determine character if you don't by truth? Truth comes first, then peace and justice. So remember the rally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judith Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Judith Anderson from Croton-on-Hudson, and I'm here tonight to say thank you again to members of this board as we prepare for the annual Women's Equality Day Reform Ceremony on August 10th here at the McCallion Building. I would like to thank the Honorable Messrs. Gordon Burroughs, John Testa, Michael Smith, and the Honorable Ms. Sheila Marcotte for sponsoring us and hopefully attending if they can possibly make it, as Bernice Spreckman has also said she hopes to attend. And this year, our ceremony will celebrate 92 years of women's voting rights by remembering Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony's historical battle for access to the ballot box. The day will also be dedicated to the memory of the late Reverend Geneva Patterson, former Women's Equality Day reformed honoree, whose ministry took her to the women's prison population, giving them a sense of a positive mother's image at a time when they and their families, during incarceration, it was needed most. Our theme will be Women's Leadership Voices, Helping or Hurting Women. And this year's outstanding keynote speaker will be Susan Moga, manager for 13 years at the Westchester County's Department of Parks and Recreation Conservation at Muscoot. And our 2012 honoree is Dr. Candace DeRusi, a nationally recognized writer and lecturer on education and cultural issues. She's a prolific author and academic scholar who served on the SUNY Board's Executive Committee and Academic Standards Committee, as well as numerous leadership roles in national and international capacities. Now, the first feminists were truly women of vision and reality. And I wanted to comment just a little bit on reality, if I might. If someone's rights are advanced while others are taken away simultaneously, I would put forth that we are not living in a true sense of reality. When Mr. Sabatino and I debated the same-sex marriage issue in Rockland County some time ago, we both kind of respectfully listened to the other person's point of view. But I have to say to Mr. Sabatino that the one thing we truly have in common is the fact that we all have a mother who's a woman and a father who's a man. I think it is important to say that if my identity as a married woman, with marriage being between a man and a woman, has to be taken away or diminished so yours can be promoted, then we are all losers. Lincoln's second inaugural spoke with malice toward none and charity for all. I simply do not believe that reality says that for me to accept the dignity of a homosexual, transgendered person, I need to remove myself from the human reality of what marriage is to a man and a woman, and society is misguided. And I do believe it's a very hollow victory that is being celebrated in New York, in California, and in some states at the moment.
Ms. Anderson,
Unity,
please wrap it up.
Yes, thank you. Unity goes beyond labels, but it cannot go beyond reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Mary Jane Bloomer.
Good evening, Chairman Jenkins and county legislators. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. These are very complicated times. We are battered by so many ideas from so many angles. It is so challenging. It has to be extremely difficult for people on all sides of the aisle. I am here, however, I'm a resident of White Plains, a lifelong New Yorker, and I'm here to plead for you all to take a look at the renewal of the Glass-Steagall principle. I want to, as a couple of prior speakers mentioned, it was actually an investment banker, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Glass or if it was Mr. Steagall, who proposed the legislation in 1933, because he was worried, and the other fellow was also worried, that there are certain unscrupulous investors that will take advantage of the common man. And as you know, Glass-Steagall provided the FDIC insurance of our savings banks. But because of certain regrettably poorly motivated regulators, and I do think we need regulation, it was chipped away, and FDIC more or less became a principle to protect the huge investors that have played with our money, gambled with our mortgages, and as we saw again with Diamond at Chase. I bank at Chase, but I am going to be speaking to my banker at Chase tomorrow. I'm really concerned about what's going on. So I do ask you to take a look at this. Marcy Kaptur is a Democrat from Ohio. She's the one that initially proposed the legislation 1489, but it is being supported by people on both sides of the aisle. So I plead for you all to think about it and renew an important principle. And regrettably, it was a Democratic president and Congress that repealed it, but after being chipped away by people that I think were unscrupulous. Let us renew that principle. Thank you so much.
Ed Riley.
My name is Ed Riley. I'm from Croton. Democratic Party is the party of abortion. Democratic Party is the party of mercy killing. The Democratic Party is the party of big city political corruption. And the Democratic Party is the party of moral decadence. To celebrate an anniversary where a corrupt legislature, where 8 of their senators are in jail, bypassing the people and bypassing the Constitution of the state in order to institute gay marriage, to make some people comfortable, and for the Democrats to exploit a minority is disgusting. To follow along and to allow the victims of bullying, most of whom have nothing to do with homosexuality, and teenage suicide, most of which have nothing to do with homosexuality, and more to do with failed heterosexual relationships or substance abuse, to be captivated by one small minority and to emphasize that fact and indoctrinate our children in schools and then have the force of law behind it, and then to celebrate the Human Rights Commission in Westchester, which has been a disgusting track record, and the LBG liaisons in the county executive's office, which has been a string of political appointees who participate in the outing of other homosexuals, is a travesty. Not only that, for everybody else, you have their celebrations before your meetings, which is supposed to begin at 7 o'clock. That thing took an hour. Purpose of my discussion today is to announce again Planned Parenthood, the organization which keeps on giving, which the abortionist caucus in this legislature never could see to bring in Lisa Wingham, Irina Schifrin, to discuss the way they administer RU46 in this county, or the way they take part in sex selection abortions. Planned Parenthood, the organization that just keeps on giving, has been caught 7 more times, including their clinic on Bleecker Street in New York City, authorizing the use of their facilities for advanced abortion for sex selection. The Democratic Party and the Abortion Caucus, which have been protecting Planned Parenthood in Westchester County, are guilty of sex selection abortion because they have done nothing about it. They're also guilty of the sexual exploitation of women, underage women, because they refused, when they get in their caucus with Planned Parenthood, to say, Planned Parenthood, what are you doing about RU46, and what are you doing about the exploitation of underage women? They can't find time to talk about that, but can they find time to persecute other people for exercising their First Amendment rights? On this line, and I wish there were a black representative do the same thing, finally, two Chinese reporters on CNN have revealed the fact of what's been going on for years, because one photograph of a sex selection abortion with the mother and the child laying dead next to it has finally hit the national news in the United States.
Mr. Riley, please.
Because it spread throughout the internet. And the only reason that happened was because a person involved in human rights fled to the United States, and 2 Chinese reporters said, women reporters, we've had enough. I'm waiting for 2 black women, or maybe a black male, we were hoping Mr. Williams would do that, would stand up and then say the same thing. We're tired of Planned Parenthood exploiting our race.
Mr. Chairman, I have no more speaker cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go for unfinished business.
Please note the following 5 items were held over from the June 4, 2012 regular board meeting consent agenda and appear here as items of unfinished business for committee referral only. Item 5338, an act amending and increasing the 2011 budget in the amount of $94,284,261 for the purposes of the disproportionate share intergovernmental transfer, legal aid society subsidy, and payments to the New York State Common Retirement Fund.
Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Okay. Majority Leader Harcum. Yep. Minority Leader Mazzano. Yes. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Yes. Mr. Gelfarb. Aye. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Aye. Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Breckman? Mr. Testa? Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The item is approved for committee referral, 16-0, and it will be referred to the Committee on Budget and Appropriations. Item 5339 is a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds within various county departments in the amount of $26,651,207. These transfers are required to complete the 2011 fiscal year on a sound financial basis.
Unless there's objection, members, I'll take the prior long roll call vote for the referral of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0, and will be referred to the Committee on Budget and Appropriations. Item 5340 is an act authorizing the transfer of funds between various county departments in the amount of $5,849,072. This transfer is needed to complete the 2011 fiscal year on a sound financial basis.
Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the referral of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0, for a committee.
It's referred. Go ahead.
Item 5348 is a communication correspondence to the Budget Committee Chair requesting the next Budget and Appropriations Committee agenda include the issuance of a subpoena to County Budget Director Soul to appear at the next available meeting of the committee with both a printed and electronic copy of the departmental request for the 2012 operating budget pursuant to Chapter 167 of the laws of Westchester County.
Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the referral of the item to committee. So ordered.
The item is referred, 16-0. Item 5349 is a referral item for Honorable Sheila Marcotte. It's a memo of legislation proposing an act be drafted establishing a policy regarding the distribution of county board meetings to the local municipal public access channels within Westchester County.
Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the referral item. So ordered.
The item is referred to committee, 16-0. The next item is a local law. It was held over from the June 4th, 2012 regular board meeting agenda and appears here as an item of unfinished business for action. This is an amendment submitted by the Committee on Legislation, an amendment to the Fair Housing Law of the Westchester County Human Rights Law in order to obtain full certification as substantially equivalent to the Federal Fair Housing Act by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the members will remember, we were prepared to move forward with this legislation, the consideration of it, except for the aging requirement that had not been satisfied at the time of our last meeting. So the item was became a piece of unfinished business for tonight. Just very simply, I guess, to as a refresh our thinking about this, we remember the discussion about the Department of Housing and Urban Development certification of substantial equivalency between county law and federal law, and the federal assistance available through FHAP. We used to talk about FMAP. Well, this was FHAP, the Federal Housing Assistance Program, which helps us accomplish important priorities in fair housing. We recall the amount of time that we worked on the whole issue of how the county attorney can be involved when there is an election to on the part of an aggrieved person to have all claims on which probable cause had been found decided in a civil action in lieu of administrative hearing, and we through our work sessions ended up with a proposed amendment that would have the county attorney representing the County Human Rights Commission with respect to the findings of the County Fair Housing Board, but would not have that attorney-client privilege directly with the complainant or the aggrieved person that was bringing the complaint in the first place. So all of these things resulted in the Legislation Committee's final work product, which was delivered to the board, as I mentioned, at our June 4th meeting. There was a public hearing held that night. However, we did not have the aging requirement satisfied for the piece of proposed legislation. So it's before us for action this evening, and once again, the committee recommends that the proposed local law that would amend our county's fair housing law that would allow us to achieve a certification of substantial equivalency be approved by this board this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Members on this item? Mr. Mazzano.
I would just like to confirm one thing for the record, if I may. I know there was different versions of this law. There was compromises with the executive branch and the federal government and the chair of the committee. I just want to make sure that the version we're voting on, Legislator Ryan, is the compromised version after there was commentary from both the administration, and you had to go back to the federal government. We're about to vote on the compromised legislation that was worked out through both branches of our government and the federal government.
That's correct. What the committee took up, Jim, was the original problem. We spent a great deal of time discussing that, and then with the good assistance of our county attorney, we started to, I think, make some real progress in talking to the feds about the types of changes we needed to make. In the end, I think the committee was satisfied that between the work of our own staff and the county attorney, and then the two of them getting together to work in concert on final language that we could take up at the legislation committee and approve. I think in our collective view, this represented as far as we would go or we would need to go in order to achieve a piece of amendment that would amend our law that would allow us to obtain the certification by the feds that we were substantially equivalent to federal statute.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mazzano, the federal government had opined on that as well after the modifications that were made after several months of this particular item being out there. So you're welcome. Other than that, I want to comment on that, but thank you, Ms. Mazzano, for bringing it up. It was a piece of legislation that the board was not made aware of that we needed to make modification of. When we were made aware of it, we did send communication to the federal government asking for an extension of time to be able to present our substantial compliance with the fair housing component of our law. The administration and the board working together through this particular item were able to get that done. And the reason, as Mr. Mazzano pointed out, that there had to be a modification in our public hearing notice was, as Mr. Ryan said, as chair of the committee, was a aging notice, which meant it had to be in final form. I believe it's for 3 days, it may be 5, but whatever it was not going to make the criteria for when we had the public hearing. So we had a public hearing to hear comment on it, but we could not take action until the aging had taken place, which we are here tonight to deal with. Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Majority Leader Harcum. Yes. Minority Leader Mazzano. Yes. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Yes. Mr. Gelfarb. Aye. Mr. Kapowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Aye. Ms. Perez. Yes. Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Yes. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The item is approved, 16-0. Item 4899 is a resolution appointing Barbara C. Waltman as a voluntary sector member of the Westchester County Community Services Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Appointments Committee interviewed Ms. Waltman. We found her to be very intelligent and thoughtful with a great deal of professional expertise on the subject matter, and I therefore enthusiastically move her appointment here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Items approved, 16-0. Item 4961, reappointment of Marjorie Leffler as a member of the Westchester County Domestic Violence Council for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Leffler has served her committee faithfully and well, and I therefore move her reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Items approved, 16-0. Item 4972 is the reappointment of George N. Longsworth as a member of the Westchester County Traffic Safety Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A traffic safety board wouldn't be much of a traffic safety board unless the jurisdiction's chief law enforcement officer were on it, so we therefore enthusiastically move Chief Longworth's reappointment tonight.
That would be Commissioner Sheriff Longworth. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5272 is the reappointment of Adam Ox as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ox has served his advisory board faithfully and well, and we therefore urge his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5274 is the reappointment of Drew Fixel as a member of the Westchester County Transportation Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Fixell, the mayor of Tarrytown, has served his committee well. He has shown a great deal of interest over the years in transportation, including mass transportation issues, and I'm therefore happy to move his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5276, reappointment of Janet Walker as the District 5 Legislative District Member of the Westchester County Women's Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Walker has the respect of the entire community in regard to these issues. She has served the committee faithfully and well. We therefore urge her reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5277 is the reappointment of Sylvia Escala de Rosa as a member of the Westchester County Hispanic Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2013.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Escala de Rosa has also served her committee faithfully and well. We thank her and the other reappointees for their past service and their willingness to continue to serve, and we happily move her reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law and roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5962 is the reappointment of Daniel Bloom as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bloom has also served his committee faithfully and well, and his professional expertise has been very useful on the committee. Therefore, we urge his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 4963, reappointment of Stephen Nardozzi as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nardozzi, too, has brought a lot to the table for the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board. He has also served faithfully and well, and I therefore move his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 4966, reappointment of Richard Lyman as an at-large career chief member of the Westchester County Fire Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Lyman has led one of the larger fire departments in this county for a number of years. He has served his committee faithfully and well, and we also urge his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Without objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 4968, reappointment of George Tockstein as a Westchester County Association of Fire Chiefs representative member of the Westchester County Fire Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tockstein, again, has served his committee faithfully and well. His expertise has been invaluable, and we urge his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 4973, reappointment of Susan Carpenter as a member of the Westchester County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Carpenter has served with a great deal of dedication, and we thank her for her service, and we are happy to move her reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5081, reappointment of Peter McDonald as an at-large career chief member of the Westchester County Fire Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief McDonald is also a very important person to have on the Fire Advisory Board, and we urge his continued participation by moving his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 4883, an act authorizing, submitted by the Committee on Public Safety and Security, an act authorizing Westchester County to enter into intermunicipal agreements with one or more municipal corporations pursuant to which the municipality, through its police department, will assist the county in enforcing the county's for-hire vehicle law, Chapter 270 of the Westchester County Administrative Code.
The items committed on the motion of Ms. Perez. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move for a very brief recess to allow for a brief leadership discussion and then allow leadership to meet very, very briefly with their respective caucuses.
We are on recess at the call of the chair, and we're trying to do this before it turns into another person's different anniversary. So, thank you.
sudden you're like, that's exactly it. Step it down.
Wait a minute.
I did. The only problem is that you saw what happened on the budget process. A lot of the programs got and that was one of them.
Members, we're back from recess. We are back from recess on this particular item.
And I don't know if like next year.
Where we are, Madam Clerk, is item number 15. Let's keep going on.
Submitted by the Committees on Budget and Appropriation and Government Operations, item 4994, a bond act authorizing the issuance of up to $83,000 in bonds to finance the cost of design of improvements to County Road Number 82, Mill Road in Eastchester and New Rochelle.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a project that will, this is the design phase of a project that will rehabilitate approximately 0.9 miles of roadway from White Plains to Wilmot Road. And it is a road that has an high annual daily traffic count of 14,739. The associated pavement condition index in 2010 was 72, which is a low score to begin with and has deteriorated since then. The Department of Public Works has advised us that corrective maintenance will extend the life of this roadway at a lower cost than structural rehabilitation or reconstruction of the road at a later date. So, giving all that information, I move that we accept this item.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item? Members, unless there is an objection, we will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of this item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations.
Over.
Submitted by the Committees on Budget and Appropriations.
Over.
Submitted by the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, item 5190, a bond act authorizing the issuance of $2 million in bonds of the county to finance capital project RGP 08, General Infrastructure Vehicle Replacement.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bond is to replace many of the parks equipment used in the Parks Department, including riding mowers, tractors, backhoes. Most of these vehicles are old. They're from the year 2000. They do receive constant use as they cover 18,000 acres and 50 parks. The reason that this is part of a routine scheduled replacement of these small vehicles. The reason why this is a larger item than we're used to seeing is that this is to cover 2 years' worth of costs. Last year, these purchases were not made in the normal course of events of routine replacement of the vehicle. So this is to basically to catch us up. In 2012, we anticipate that we will see another bond for this type of replacement next year that will be smaller. So given all that, I move that we accept this item.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to rise because during our capital project subcommittee meeting on these, on vehicles in general, we asked that analysis be done and conducted on options between lease versus purchase in the normal course. I know that these particular vehicles have not, at the time that the presentation was made, that analysis had not been done, but I'm assured that, we were assured that those options will be looked at in the future to ensure that the board gets information on any studies that are done in connection with exercising a lease versus purchase option. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Other members on the item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Item submitted by the Committees on Public Safety and Security and Budget and Appropriations is item 5358, an act to authorize the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Rybrook, pursuant to which the village, through its police department, will assist the county in enforcing the Westchester County for Hire vehicle law.
Ms. Perez.
Mic wasn't turned on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 municipalities, well, this one first. This IMA, we're going to go ahead and pass so that the local municipality of Rybrook and the following municipalities can work in conjunction with the county PD to enforce the for hire vehicle law. This will be a trial basis for now, in a 12-month period, and we're going to see how it works, and then it is open for other municipalities to sign in. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Members on this item. We are on members, and just for speed purposes, we will be on discussion for item 5358, item 20, which is 5359, item 21, 5360, item 22, which is 5361, which are all IMAs for for-hire vehicles for specific municipalities, which will be read at that particular time. Other members on this item, Ms. Marcotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to stand, obviously I'm going to support these IMAs, there are 5 of them. I just would be remiss, however, if I didn't put some comments on the record. I do understand that it is your hope that this will be a trial, and I'm okay with that as long as it is a short trial period. I don't necessarily agree that this should be 12 months limited to 5 municipalities. I do hope that this honorable board will be open to more municipalities, as I suspect they will come forward willingly and quickly, as they're going to want to participate in revenue sharing. So this was a very long time coming. There were a lot of obstacles, a lot of roadblocks, and I hope that going forward we can expedite these IMAs, because it does truly benefit the county, the municipalities, and most importantly our residents who rely on us to undertake public safety issues such as this. So again, I think it's a great idea, and I certainly will be voting in favor of all 5 of these tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marcotte. Members on this item? I just wanted to say that the legislature on both sides of the aisle on this particular item worked extremely well. Ms. Marcotte, you've been an advocate for this particular IMA for some period of time, and certainly because of your work with Ms. Perez and members of this board trying to find a solution, we're able to get something accomplished and make some modifications that probably is going to have the unanimous votes that we like to have down here. So thank you all so much for your work on these particular items. Madam Clerk, unless there's an objection, members, and you want to have an individual vote, which I don't think you do, unless there's objection, we will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5, submitted by the Committees on Public Safety and Security and Budget and Appropriations. Item 5359, an act to authorize the County of Westchester to enter into a municipal agreement with the Village of Sleepy Hollow, pursuant to which the village, through its police department, will assist the county in enforcing the Westchester County for Hire vehicle law.
Ms. Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Same as the prior IMA. Again, this is a 12-month trial period for Sleepy Hollow, and same for Terrytown, same for Tuckahoe, where the local police department will be working in conjunction with the county police department in order to enforce the for hire vehicle law, to prevent unlicensed taxi drivers. Is a public safety matter, and we're looking forward to see how this is going to work and see how many more municipalities will be signing on this IMA. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. As previously discussed, so moved. Unless there's objection, members, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So moved.
The item's
ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Item 5360, submitted by the Committees on Public Safety and Security and Budget and Appropriation, is an act to authorize the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Terrytown, pursuant to which the village, through its police department, will assist the county in enforcing the Westchester County for Hire Vehicle Law.
Ms. Perez.
As previously discussed, so moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Perez. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committees on Public Safety and Security and Budget and Appropriations is item 5361, an act to authorize the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Tuckahoe, pursuant to which the village, through its police department, will assist the county in enforcing the Westchester County for Hire Vehicle Law.
Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, as previously discussed, so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law roll call vote for the approval of the items. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committees on Government Operations and Budget and Appropriations is item 5356, an act amending the 2012 County Capital Budget Appropriation for Capital Project A0071 Airport Planning Studies.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this was an interesting item that we discussed many times, both in government operations and budget. The administration advised us that recently the federal government changed the application to require that the portion of commitment by the Westchester County in order to submit, let me take a step backwards. The matter right beneath this is what we need to talk about first, which is that the county is entering into a grant agreement with the FAA to fund the majority of the new master plan for the airport planning study. At the time that this was first sent down to the board, it had a county match of 5%. The administration was advised that the FAA now required a 10% match. We had a little back and forth about the process associated with guaranteeing that the county would increase its share to 10% because we are also applying for a state grant which would cover half of our 10% share. And it took a little bit of untangling, thanks to the work of the administration and our fiscal staff at the board, to figure out what the exact process was with respect to this. There was some new information that came down at every committee meeting, so it was a learning process for both sides. However, as of this morning, we did untangle the process, and we all came to the agreement that this capital budget amendment was indeed the way to go forward. We are still hoping to receive half of the county's 10% share in a grant from the state. However, we cannot apply for that until we have submitted our federal grant. So that is why we are recommending that we go forward and approve this capital budget amendment for A0071 for the airport planning study. So moved.
Thank you. Members on this item. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior law roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committees on Government Operations and Budget and Appropriations is item 5249, an act to authorize the county to apply for and enter into a grant agreement with the United States of America acting through the Federal Aviation Administration for Capital Project A0071 Airport Planning Studies.
Ms. Borgia.
As I stated previously, this is the authorization to allow us to enter into this grant process. It is a competitive grant process with a deadline fast approaching, so we do believe that it is important to pass this act in order to get into the right space in the queue so that we can access this grant money. So therefore, so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item's approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committees The Committee on Appointments, item 4886, appointment of Steve Morello as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman. We're fortunate to have someone of Mr. Morello's breadth of experience serve on this board, and for that reason, I enthusiastically move his appointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committee on Appointments, item 4898, appointment of William Schmidt as a member of the Westchester County Human Rights Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2012.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Schmidt is truly an extraordinary individual. Anyone who knows him knows that, and I feel honored on the night that we celebrate the achievements of the LGBTQ community in Westchester County to move his appointment to the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Submitted by the Committee on Appointments, item 5295, a resolution approving a waiver of Section 88321H2 of the Westchester County Code of Ethics to permit Karen D. Norman to accept an offer of employment with Andrus.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Norman currently works for the Department of Social Services, which has 3 outstanding contracts with Andrus, which is her prospective future employer. Ms. Norman, however, has had no connections in her current work with Andrus, and when she goes to Andrus, at least for the first year, she will have no connections with the county. Therefore, it seems appropriate, especially given the fact that she is not in a high policy-making position, to grant her waiver tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Madam Clerk, a long roll call.
Majority Leader Harcum.
Yes.
Minority Leader Mazzano. No. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfarb. No. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Aye. Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Yes. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Yes. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
The item's approved, 14-2. We go now to the special orders. Special order number 1, reconsideration of Act 50-2012, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of New Rochelle Youth Bureau for the provision of positive youth development services.
Members, this is reconsideration. Unless there's an objection, Mr. Mazzano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to put a couple of things on the record before we cast these upcoming votes. I'm speaking on behalf of the Republican caucus on this one, and just want to realize, I think we know how the vote's going to go, but I just want to put some things on the record before we take the vote. These votes are happening because the Board of Legislators approved a bunch of items relating to youth programs and invest in kids. And after we did that approval, the county executive sent a letter to the board on June 1st where he raised some objections to what was done in the legislation. And members of our board have deemed that this is the equivalent of a veto, although the word veto doesn't appear in our charter, as you all know, in section 107.71. I guess the word is really reconsideration. That's why it says act-reconsideration on these 5 items. But either way, whether it's veto or reconsideration, it's the same concept. And that concept is, the way our charter works is that if an act is passed, It does not take effect until there is written approval of the county executive, number one. Number two, if the act is not returned to the BOL by the CA with opposition in 10 days, okay? So if the act is not returned to us with opposition in 10 days, it passes. If we do get opposition from the county executive within 10 days, the charter would, I guess, call that a disapproval, and then becomes effective by a 2/3 vote, which we are about to do. Our caucus believes that the letter of June 1st from the county executive did not rise to the level of a disapproval if you read the actual text. While I can understand why people on the board do think that it would rise to that standard, we don't agree. We think that this letter makes pretty clear, particularly in the first paragraph, when it says, "Please be advised that the above referenced acts became law on June 1st without my signature, as provided for under the laws of the Westchester County, Chapter 107.71. So the county executive made pretty clear in his first sentence that this was going to become law, and in my mind, that means he wasn't vetoing it or disapproving of it. He just wanted to add some comments about the legislation without doing a veto or disapproval. So we think that the language is pretty clear in this letter that this was going to become law, and we don't need this action we're about to take. That is our position. However, we also deem on our side of the aisle that these youth programs are really important, and they really matter. And we're not going to allow a semantical debate between the executive branch and the legislative branch cause us to vote against really important programs for kids. So despite the fact we think this is unnecessary, and this is somewhat semantical theatrics, we will vote to do the reconsideration for one reason and only one reason, that these programs for kids really matter. They took a lot of time to work out through our budget and our board's review process. This money really has to get to these programs for these kids, and we're not going to be involved in anything that would slow that down. So we will vote yes for this reconsideration, although we believe it is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzano. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Mazzano for a good recitation of the law and the process. And that's why we have put these items on the agenda tonight. We're a body of laws, of regulations. We want to do things the right way. The issue with the letter was it came attached within the 10-day period, and the charter does not allow for that, which is why there's the interpretation of a override or a veto, as it were. Frankly, we want to dot our I's, we want to cross our T's, we want to make sure our process is correct, and we don't want to open ourselves for litigation. So we want to do things the right way, call this a technical correction, to be polite, if we will. We'll get this done. We all, from a policy standpoint, believe these are good programs. We'll get them done. We would hate to see these held up by somebody on the outside coming in and litigating, saying these weren't done the right way, from whichever side. So we've got these 5 items. We pass them through tonight, onward and upward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum. Other members? Madam Clerk, long roll call.
Majority Leader Harcum.
Yes.
Minority Leader Mazzano. Yes. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfarb.
Aye.
Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Aye. Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The item is approved 16-0. Special order item number 2, reconsideration of Act 51, 2012, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of Peekskill Youth Bureau for the provision of positive youth development services.
And it's Act 2012-51. Members, unless there's objection, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the reconsideration of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved 16-0. Special order item number 3, reconsideration of Act 52, 2012, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of White Plains Youth Bureau Clubman Higher Aims Program for the provision of positive youth development services.
That was 52 or 53, Madam Chair?
That's 52, 2000.
Thank you so much. Members, unless there's an objection, I'll take the prior long roll call vote for the reconsideration of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Special order item number 4, reconsideration of Act 53, 2012, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of White Plains Youth Bureau, Healthy and Fit for Life, for the provision of positive youth development services.
Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the reconsideration of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Special order item number 5, reconsideration of Act 54, 2012, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of White Plains Youth Bureau Step Up Program for the provision of positive youth development services.
Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the reconsideration of the item. So ordered.
The item is approved, 16-0. Motions, resolutions, and call of the district.
Members, before we get started, we certainly want to say congratulations to Bernice Breckman on her 48th wedding anniversary. So that is so nice. We're going to get out here at a reasonable time for that. Congratulations, Ms. Breckman. We are all striving to make those years in marriage, and congratulations to you and Harry. And we were going to have a cake later on. That would be good. Members, motions, resolutions, and calls of the districts. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Yes, just like to add the name of Seymour Keller of Chappaqua, and also just real briefly on Stephen Patari, for all of us, short and long tenured, a gentleman who always stuck by his convictions, was assertive yet polite, was a real advocate for legal aid, and I'm sure missed directly by that institution, but in the bigger sense, missed by everybody because of the work. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the memory of him and his family, and Godspeed to all.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplowitz. Other members, motions, resolutions, call of the districts. Ms. Marcotte.
Chairman, I'd like to add the name of Mrs. Vincent Zuccarelli. The Zuccarelli family resided in Yonkers, but had a store in Eastchester for many, many years, and perhaps the Yonkers legislators would like to join me on that resolution. I believe they also had a storefront in Portchester. If I could add that name, thank you.
Thank you. I would absolutely be joining you. I saw Mr. Burrows, Ms. Breckman, and Ms.
Yes.
Perez not in agreement. Thank you so much. And Mr. Gelfarb as well from and Mr. Maizano. Other members, motions, resolutions, and calls of the districts. Mr. Ryan.
Chairman, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that this name that I submitted was on so quickly. And I believe that Mr. Testa would probably like to join me on this particular resolution. The resolution is for Coleman Smith Jr., who recently passed away. Long-time resident of the city of Peekskill, very well-known individual. I first met Coleman Smith when he was employed at the Peekskill City Schools, and I knew him as a young kid. And then later on, when I returned to Peekskill, after spending time out of the community, got involved with the Democratic Party and was elected its chairman. Coleman Smith at that point was a member of the county committee and the Peekskill Democratic City Committee. During the time I was chair, during the time I ran for election and served as a state assemblyman, Coleman Smith continued his service as a district leader and as an area coordinator within the local organization. Politics, rough business. And I think when you look at the people who try their best to give it, put a good face on it, give it a good name, work hard in a way that politics and government can earn back the good name that it has, because people like Coleman Smith felt that if government and politics work properly, they can do a tremendous amount of good for people. He was involved in the political process as a helper behind the scenes because he really believed in Peekskill. And I know that when it was no longer possible for him to participate, and it was no longer possible for him to participate in some of the community organizations that he was appointed to by the local governing body. He still stayed very active and interested, watched the proceedings of the local council. I'm sure watched Mayor John Testa during the time he was mayor with his council. Certainly watched us down here, and this board had an opportunity through me and a few other representatives of the board a few years ago to take a trip up to Colonial Terrace for an important night when a organization here in Westchester honored Coleman Smith for his work and his contribution to the community and to the county. So it's a loss, but he was a great man and a great friend. And if you knew him, you know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't know him, understand that he needs to be thanked for his years of service and contribution he made to his fellow residents in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Testa, we've been on it, and certainly I want to be added on that as well. Mr. Ryan, if that's all right. Mr. Mazzano.
I placed on the agenda for a memorial resolution Steve Pittari, and maybe some other legislators did too. I may not have been the only one, but just a quick note. I guess you all know who that is. He was the head of the Legal Aid Society for many years in Westchester County, and I could just say that having dealt with him as a legislator several times and a few issues that became for our board that dealt with the Legal Aid Society, I think everybody on both sides of the aisle found Steve to be a first-rate professional, someone completely dedicated to the Legal Aid Society. As you know, although that's the last line of defense if somebody accused of a crime and doesn't have the money to hire a lawyer. But the most important thing I always found Stevie was just a really nice guy, really smart guy, really caring guy, and a first-rate professional that dealt with our county board of legislators. And that's why I think it's important for us to recognize people like that who we've worked with in a professional way, who gave so much to the county for a passion they had. He clearly had a passion for the Legal Aid Society and was such a professional. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzano. I'm looking around to see, that sounds like an all members type item so we thank you, Mr. Mazzano, for making sure that happened. Other members, I know I saw your hands, but it may have been just for that. All right. Before we close up, I just wanted to say two things. One, that we want to thank Sarah Gargiulo for making some modifications in your web pages that you probably have not really noticed yet. But on your web pages, whatever news items that you send out now appear on your individual home page, as well as your pictures that your legislative aides can put in. So if you need help in doing that, make sure you talk to central staff, but that means you can point to your home page with your information, and whatever releases that you send out that go through the media center will appear on your home page. So that was a change that took a little doing to make sure it happened, but we thank Sarah for following up with our IT department, who said it was going to take some act of God to make that happen, but we were able to get that done. Other than that, if we all could rise and observe a moment of silence for those mentioned in the memorial resolutions. And before we gavel out, we also want to make sure to recognize that the the National Association of Counties is meeting, and it's meeting rather locally. It's not New York, but it's pretty close. And Bill Ryan is going to be representing us. If there's other members, they did get the information. Every legislator got that information, and certainly to learn about the best practices around the country as counties struggle through this is a good opportunity. So, Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we adjourn and that we reconvene on July 9th at 7 p.m.
On the motion of Mr. Harcum, the board stands adjourned.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. Wow.
15-year thing? You're
Yeah.
right. Right, so we're gonna have to figure out whether that
Just,
was a, but no, whether it was a drafting error